You're live.
And welcome everybody to our TomFoolery reunion show. Here we are.
Woohoo!
All of these crazy people around me. For fans of TomFoolery, you don't need to be reminded of when this show was, but on the off chance one of our viewers has not seen this show, and I'm sorry that you didn't, and you will be punished later. It was not quite a year ago. It was in the fall of 2019. It was the our next to final show of 2019.
That was 15 years ago, Bob.
It feels like it, doesn't it? It feels.
Oh my gosh.
Even longer than that. So let's first of all go around and introduce yourselves for those who need those introductions, and tell us where you are and how you are. Let's go ladies first. Joel.
Hello everybody. Joel Fishke coming to you from the friendly confines of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Was there anything else I was supposed to say there?
Well, how you doing?
Well, oh boy, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I kind of feel like that question operates on a couple different levels. I mean, I'm okay. I'm, without going too deep, I want to leave time for others, but I'm kind of doing okay. But when I kind of broaden my view to beyond just my little world, it's like, well, I am feeling scared and sad and angry about the world at large. So both of those things are going on right now. But generally I am in good health and good spirits.
Excellent. And the lovely Miss Carmen.
Thank you. I am in Kenosha, hanging out with my husband, who is back at work. And also, pretty much like Joel said, in overall good health. Trying to process everything with the world. Even with the pandemic, it's like, well, some days I'm okay, and some days I'm depressed, and some days I'm making the most of it and taking care of my mental health. And connecting with the world through social media like we are right now, and always trying to learn and grow. And hey, we've got lots of time for that right now. So that's what I'm doing.
Exactly. What about you, Bradley?
Well, I am currently in Chicago, doing, very similar to what everyone else has said, just kind of echoing that sentiment, doing my best to find a balance between, getting out there and being active in like all the different socio-political movements happening right now, and trying to find ways to be kind to myself too, and give myself a chance to decompress and not. It's very easy to feel like we're not doing enough, and so I'm just trying to find where the balance is. That's kind of where my headspace is at right now. Yeah, I get you. And what is that lovely frock you're wearing? Oh, it's one of my favorite little sundresses that I've got on. It's actually, I realized after I put it on that this is the same outfit I'm wearing in my profile picture, because it's one of my new headshots. But yeah, I wore it. I walked to the liquor store today to get this wine, and so I had to put on a sundress. It's so beautiful.
Exactly. And I hope the cat makes an appearance.
Oh, I hope so too. I'm not sure I think she's napping. So you might make an appearance.
Okay. And last but not least, the lovely and talented and very tall Mr. Ryan Kappelman. How are you, Ryan?
I'm only about 2 inches tall on a computer screen.
It comes through though, you get tall, the camera makes you taller,
As long as it's not adding any of the quarantine weight I've gained, then we're good.
Well, the camera shot is very cleverly cut off at the right point.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Yeah, cheers to all that.
So where are you and how are you, Ryan?
I'm good. I'm actually about a mile away from Joel. And I'm good. My part-time work is wrapping up, so I have a lot more free time coming up, and I've been teaching a small virtual voice studio, which has been a lot of fun, and really proud of those kids for the progress that they've been making in this way of learning and this way of teaching, and it's been a challenge for me too. So as just to learn how to teach in this way. So, but it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
And have you been doing dance classes too online?
Yeah,
or-
I taught 2 dance for musical theater classes for Skylight. I did one earlier this week, and then another one a week ago. They've been offering some free programming. We would normally be gearing up for our high school musical theater intensive very soon, so we've been trying to offer some free programming for any kids or professionals even who wanna work on their craft while we're still stuck in quarantine. So.
Yeah, it's great. And you do these wonderful living room concerts.
Haven't done one in a couple of weeks. It's been harder to focus lately. So
Yeah, well, God bless you for what you're doing, what you're all doing. And you said you're a mile away from Joel. That's pretty good.
yeah.
You might want to get more distance
I would work on that.
from him, because you never know where he's been. I want to talk about tomfoolery, and I don't want this to be a big downer at all, but it would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge current events. But I want to tie it into tomfoolery in that Tom Lehrer wrote satirical songs about issues of the day. He was writing at the height of the civil rights movement. Nuclear annihilation was in the air. I mean, all kinds of things going on. Bay of Pigs, when we came close to being actually bombed from close by, and he managed to face that time with an enormous amount of wit and humor. And so I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts about how would Tom Lehrer approach now? What kind of songs do you think, or are there any songs would his type of humor not fit in right now, or not? Or do we need to laugh, to find the humor in some of this somewhere?
Well, the easier kind of half of that question, I think that he would definitely have some great songs about quarantine. That is like, very, very fair game. I think Tom Lehrer would have a field day with that subject matter. Some of the other things going on, I think it is a little bit more of a nuanced conversation to be had, but that I'm sure he would have some incredible material about, wearing masks and all
Sure.
of everything we're all going through with that.
Well, I think you have to look at some of the, the contemporary comedy that is doing the same types of satire, some of the stuff that Trevor Noah is doing, Seth Meyers, political stuff. Sometimes it's hard to find the comedy there, but they're finding it, and especially over the last week, Seth Meyers just kind of turned over part of his program to one of his writers, who's a Black woman, and just said, tell some stories and share, and telling these horrific stories about what it's like to be Black in America, especially with police, and yet it would be sad and infuriating and funny. She would find humor in it too, because she's a funny person, Amber Ruffin. And so I think Tom Lehrer would probably be doing the same. He would be poking fun at the hypocrisies, probably on all sides. It's not that there isn't hypocrisy on all sides. He'd be poking fun at hypocrisy and politicians and all the stuff that's going on. I'm sure he'd probably be avoiding some of the the rawest wounds right now, because the classic saying is, comedy is tragedy plus time, and right now, that time is it's not distant yet, so it's hard to
Right.
it's hard to find some of the humor there. But yeah, I think he'd if we had him on the phone, I think he'd probably have some insight to share about that.
And we could potentially have him on the phone because Mr. Lehrer is still with us. He turned 92 in April,
Wow.
and for all we know, he's still writing songs. He stopped performing and writing basically in the late 60s or so, and he was always asked why he did, and he just said he simply lost interest. The rumor was that quote that's in the play, I stopped writing satire when Henry Kissinger won the Nobel Peace Prize because there was no point. But that's more apocryphal. He just basically he got bored singing the same material over and over again. He thought he said everything that he had to say, and he didn't want to be part of a machine where he had to grind out stuff. He'd like to write whenever he liked to write, and so he just stopped. But he left this incredible body of work. So it just tying it into what's happening today. In doing the piece, not quite a year ago, it never felt to me, and never still doesn't feel to me like it's some nostalgic piece looking at a time capsule. I mean, you are looking at a particular time, but there's a definite timeless quality. I mean, hate is universal. Love is universal. Pornography is universal. Pollution is universal. All of that. So that's what I think was the brilliant thing about his work is that you could hear that now without, you're not listening to Chubby Checker do the twist and having some kid say, "What's that?" It's outside of a few references that you'd have to explain. It's pretty universal stuff, and the audience reaction to it just proves that. And I was very delighted to see how the audience reacted to this material so many years later. Let me just go back a bit to why we even happened to do the thing in the first place. I don't think I was aware of Tom Lehrer at all, at least his name I wasn't aware of until I was cast in TomFoolery in 1980. and it was at the Delaware Theater Company in Wilmington, Delaware. And suddenly I was immersed, like you all were, in the whole world of Tom Lehrer, and just had the best time. And the audiences for that production, every night was like a party. It was the most spontaneously fun audience I've ever performed for. A lot of them, I suppose, knew Tom Lehrer. It was a lot closer to Tom Lehrer's time. So, but still, it wasn't like we were, regurgitating oldies hits or anything. It was just a lovely, fun time. And so much so that it was such a big success there. They had us back the next year, and we did another whole run of the show. So when James and I came to TAP, 8 years ago now, almost 9. Time does fly. TomFoolery was always on my list of things to do. It was always in the short list of things. It's a small show. It's a cabaret show. It was meant to be in a small space. So the stars aligned finally. You have to find the right people that can do it too. And so finally I found the right people and at the right time, and here you all are. So first of all, was this show, I know for maybe one of you, there was an introduction to Tom Lehrer or not? Who did not have any, was it you, Carmen, or?
Well, I was familiar with the Elements song. I mean, I had been familiar with the Elements song for years,
Yeah.
but I didn't know who wrote it. I knew that it was a parody of Modern Major General from The Pirates of Penzance by Gilbert and Sullivan, but I didn't know who had written the Elements. But Bob, when you told me this is the guy who did that, I was like, oh, okay then. And then I was immersed in the rest of his repertoire.
And Bradley, I think one of the first things I heard you do was a Tom Lehrer song.
Yeah, I was introduced to Tom Lehrer by my voice teacher in college. And I sang Poisoning Pigeons in the Park for my senior showcase. So that was, was introduced to him through that. And yeah, I think that's what I sang for the first time I auditioned for y'all. So anyway, that was kind of a fun, I got to sing that with Carmen in the show. And so it was definitely fun to see that to fruition, because I do really love, since first hearing it, I've always really connected with, just his biting satire, and just so unique to him.
I think, I think I remember you doing it for us in person, but there's a YouTube video out of you doing it.
There's a video from
on your website or
on my website.
Something. So check out Bradley's website, and you can have a whole concert. What about you, Joel? What was your background with Tom?
Oh, I have kind of always been into this sort of stuff. My own comic song writing. Tom Lehrer was one of my heroes. Tom Lehrer and Alan Sherman and some of those guys. So I used to listen to Dr. Demento, and he would play some Tom Lehrer stuff. So I was very familiar. I had a number of recordings. I still had one LP up on the set.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there were still some songs that I either didn't remember or had never been familiar with before. So there was still plenty to learn and explore and be surprised about.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan?
I was first introduced to Tom Lehrer from my high school music teacher, voice teacher. She had a couple kids sing some of his songs in studio recitals, and I just remember this very sweet girl, very innocently singing "Poisoning Pigeons in the Park." Really,
The only way you can do it.
yeah,
Indeed. Yes. Totally.
So let's talk about what it was like performing this play. Doing it. Anything. Favorite moments. I mean, working with the audience in this play. I mean, the audience is in every play is another character in the play. Definitely in this kind of cabaret type act, the audience is you're definitely feeding off the audience 100% of the time, because you're looking them directly in the eye all the time. So what was it like doing this? Any one of you?
It's so fun. I mean, It's just such a fun show. And I mean, you get to sing. A lot of us got to take turns being musicians in the show, and we just got to play and say things that had a lot of meaning to them. And for me, that's just the whole package of getting to do a show. For me, that's something I really love. And then to get to do it with a bunch of talented, fun, kind people, that you always felt safe with on stage and that you could play with on stage, was just delightful. And then, of course, for us to be in Door County together, I think probably a lot of casts then play together and they explore Door County together, and we did that a lot. And it was a lot of fun. but also like really meaningful at the same time.
Well, you mentioned everybody played instruments. I mean, you're a wonderful percussionist as well as a pianist.
Mhm.
And so you very graciously brought up your whole percussion thing. And then you ended up not playing any of it.
Yeah, that's right.
And we gave it to
brought up-
our alternate percussionist, who
Bradley, yes.
who did that. You and Ryan traded off on the piano.
Yep.
And Joel, what'd you do? Play kazoo? What did you do?
I had a very important triangle part,
Yeah, so yeah,
That's right.
That's right.
and I did the rim shots. I did the rim
Yes, you
shots.
did.
thing.
Yes, you
Oh
did.
yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was very beautiful. That
was
what else?
Probably more than you should have given me to do as far as that.
Well, I always like to, challenge the
Yep.
actors in the show.
So this is the kind of small stage cabaret kind of performing is what I most like to do. And so getting to play with this material, getting to play with the audience, the fact that I got to do a lot of the narration, which let me comment as necessary or as the situation would allow, depending on audience reaction. I love that. And especially with this material, because, comic sensibilities change over time. And so some of Lara's jokes still, some of them sounded like he wrote them yesterday. Some of them were a little older in their sensibilities.
Sure.
So some nights the audience were just like, great, we got the intention, we're all in. And some nights you could tell they were like, oh, I'm not sure that's a joke we would make today. And so that was always part of the fun of it. I guess, is seeing how much the audience was just going to buy in and be all in on some stuff, and how much they're going to be like, no, that's the line for me. And whether it's a sensibility of now versus then, or just a sensibility of no, that's a joke that I'm not. That was, for me, that's a lot of fun, because I love the science comedy, and I love to see how, I'll look at an audience before the show and go, how is this going to land? And often they'll surprise me in what they respond to and what they don't.
Yeah. And kind of related to that, I felt like one of the really interesting things for me about the typical audiences that we got is that there was this like very stark crossroads between, like, everyone in the audience was either someone who had never heard a lick of Tom Lehrer in their lives, or they were someone who could mouth every word to every song, and so it was like this really interesting dynamic of people who were having such fun reliving this thing from like their childhoods or from like, years past, and then people discovering it for the first time. And so like that was a really fun dynamic energy to play with every night.
Yeah, I love how that,
go ahead.
I loved how it would take people back to like high school. Like I remember a couple people, as we were in the greeting line after the show, they said, for the last 2 hours, I've been in high school again, and that was great. And I'm like, like only theater can make you feel like that. And that's, I think for an audience member especially, that's really special and really memorable. And
yeah, I mean, for some members of our audience, this music was popular when they were in high school or college, and Tom Lehrer did a lot of college tours in his performing career. I mean, you mentioned, Joel, the humor, and yeah, some of the humor we had to tweak a bit. Some of it was perhaps would not. You mentioned some of the humor doesn't land as well, and those are some of the bad jokes. But I'm thinking more the some of the ethnic references we talked about in Old Mexico, where it was a spoof. It was really a spoof of Americans going to Mexico and all that, but it used initially very broad ethnic stereotypes and all that, and we decided as a group to tone that down a bit, because it wasn't really just going to, I think the song probably would have suffered had it been done as it was originally done and whenever it was, 62 or whatever. But the line I guess we had to look at was, because Tom Lehrer was always going up to a certain line, and he was always walking that tightrope. If he, not going too far and definitely not going too little as well. So, and we managed, I think, to strike a balance. I remember I told you that story about I Got It From Agnes, which was a song that we cut in 1980 from it because we were at the height of the AIDS crisis in 1980, and suddenly a song about getting syphilis from one person to another, very cleverly written. I mean, it doesn't say syphilis, but the audience at the time would assume that that's what it was. Suddenly it was in 1980, we were dealing with AIDS, and we did it for one audience, and it was the only time that they went dead silent, and so that song was out. Now, if we did I Get It From Agnes today, how would that play?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because even when we did it in the fall, I remember us talking about whether or not to do it because you had cut it in your previous production, and we kind of decided that it hit very different present day, and it did. People seemed to like it. But even now, like 8 months later, it would be a completely different note, and I think it would play. I think it would kill. I think it would be really hysterical.
Yeah.
If theater could exist.
It certainly, and it certainly proves that, the timelessness of some of the stuff he writes, what goes around comes around. And just wait a few years, if it falls out of fashion, it's going to come back, roaring back with us. So, I mean, we're dealing with nostalgia from 1918 right now.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
who knew that was going to happen? Right. What do you have any favorite moments of your own or others in this? Any big mistakes that you made? Any embarrassing moments?
None.
Tell.
I have two.
Okay.
I have two that I want to talk about.
It's happy hour, remember? So you gotta come on.
Woo! Okay, so the first one, these happened on 2 different nights. So 2 different audiences got blessed with these mistakes, right? So the first one was me and Ryan. And which song was it when I was supposed to come around? The waltz. I was supposed to come around and choke you.
The Wiener Schnitzel waltz.
Thank you, yes, the Wiener Schnitzel waltz, yes. So I come around and I'm choking Ryan at the piano, right? And he's supposed to be like, the song's like he's falling in love with me and I'm not having it or whatever. And I had this beautiful skirt, full skirt that our costume team had designed. And just that night, for whatever reason, the way Ryan leaned on me, he caught my skirt. And I didn't fall over, but Ryan did. He fell backwards off of the, right? Is that what happened?
I took out both piano benches, which happened to have I don't know, like 1980s taxes documents inside of them. Spread all over the stage, and then the audience was dying, and Carmen and I were dying, and then we drove TomFoolery at that moment, and we did. It lasted, I kid you not, probably at least 2 minutes. And
because I couldn't get it together.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
And luckily it was just supposed to be this quiet moment in the music, right? So I'm supposed to transition to the top of the piano. I'm supposed to sing, and I really tried. And I was like, Ryan just waited for me. The audience loved it. They were with me.
Comedy gold.
Yeah. And so then for the rest of the run, whenever we did that moment, I tried so hard to not let that happen again. I was almost afraid that we got a little stiff in that moment afterwards. But because I was always then trying not to laugh about something that had happened, last week in that moment. But that was fun for me.
Excellent.
And then the other night was the night that Joel's mom was there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
So Joel set me up. Were you talking about the pornography song initially? Yeah.
Mhm.
So Joel was leading the song Smut or whatever, and then he had some ad lib of, oh my gosh, my mom's here tonight, right? And so then later on in the show, I come out and I do this like striptease type number in the style, well, and it's talking about Oedipus Rex. It's a song about Oedipus Rex, who, you know, goes away and then comes back and accidentally sleeps with his mother, right? So Joel is like the person that I was kind of doing this striptease for, right? So at the end of that song, I'm supposed to say something else, you know, how do you like that? But instead, in the dead silence, after I had done this whole striptease for Joel, I was like, so I hear your mom's here tonight.
That was one of the single greatest ad libs I have
That-
ever seen.
That was brilliant.
It was.
Well, and Mom liked it too.
Yeah.
Yep, he did. He did.
And
And
Joel
for
set
once,
me up for
Joel
it.
was speechless.
Yeah.
Without even, I had not, that later moment had not occurred to me at all. It's just, and it didn't even occur to me, like the smut thing didn't occur to me until I was saying it. I'm just like, huh, my mom's here tonight. I'm like, yeah, I'll say that part out loud.
Yeah.
And,
Right. Well, and I was thinking about saying something about it the whole song. You know, when you're an actor and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing,
Right.
but your mind is like thinking about something else, and you're like, be present in the moment. And like, when could I say something? When should I say something? And then when the moment was right, it was right. And there it was.
oh, that was
It was
brilliant.
beautiful. It was a beautiful.
I think Ryan stood up and applauded, which I
I
was like,
did.
thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
Well, what else? I remember, Joel, you once said that you wanted to kill me during rehearsal.
Yeah, at least once I said that. Yeah.
Once? I thought there were several times.
Yeah, but you know,
Talk
my
about your murderous plans for me,
well,
would you?
well, you know, I'm not going to give all the plans away because we might work together again. I might, you know, I don't want you to be too prepared, but no, it was the volume of material that we had to conquer in a short amount of time just incredibly taxed me to no end. I mean, we would have what 6-7 hour rehearsals, and then I would go home and I would work for like another 4 or 5 hours, you know, working on you know, the intricacies of the music in terms of getting the lyrics and the rhythms and the harmonies and then the choreography and all that. And then there were, you know, a zillion props and all of that. And then you doing your job kept having good ideas, which is kind of the whole point of rehearsal.
Well, because of you came in with something and did something and said,
Well, right,
that's
right,
great, let's
you know,
try this.
right, exactly, which is how rehearsal is supposed to work. But I was just at the point where I'm just like, no, I have no more room for ideas in my head. Call me in 3 weeks, maybe. Yeah, I was a little at my wit's end there, but I persevered, and I felt like I got over the hump, and then the strange thing happened where it felt like, you know, we weren't perfect, but all of a sudden it felt like, oh, we're ready for an audience, and we're still like 3 or 4 days away from an audience. It was just so funny how so quickly it went from, I don't know if we'll ever figure this out, to we need an audience. I've never had that experience. I have been a professional actor for almost 50 years, and I've never had an experience like that where it went from feeling hopeless to then feeling like, all right, come on, let's get the audience in here.
It's a story of my life here. I mean, you know, we have a short rehearsal period, so you know, it's up to me or any director, anybody who directs here, to just calibrate the rehearsals. We have to move on, and we have to get to a certain place at a certain time. At the same time, you all have to feel comfortable doing what you're doing, and to find that balance. When can I push? When can I just hold back so you can absorb what you need to absorb and move on to something else. And so it's and it's different for any cast, because you're 4 individuals, you have 4 different ways of working, so I have to be in as much as I can be in tune with each one of you and how your process is going and all that. But at the same time, I know we gotta open this thing, and so, but the goal is always that by the time we have that audience, that you're at least in a place where you're comfortable to do the show, and then the show can just grow from that point on. But we want to get you to a place where you don't feel. I mean, did the rest of you feel the same way? By the time you got an audience, were you ready to face an audience?
Yeah, I felt ready.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like that always happens with comedy. You can only rehearse so much before you need to add that element in.
Yeah, so and I, especially having done the show, I knew what you were all up against. I mean, physically, I could feel it every night, especially in those songs that perhaps you were doing, Joel, or you were doing, Bradley, or Carmen, or Ryan, that didn't correspond exactly. Like, I did Masochism Tango, and I also did My Hand in Mine, kinds of things. I did so, and I'm trying to think if I did. I don't think I did anything of yours, Carmen.
Probably not.
Oh, you did it.
But anyway, I mean, I could feel everything that you guys were going through, and then it leads me to Ryan, because Ryan, speaking of working hard, you were doing La La Lucille. We started rehearsals during the final week of La La Lucille, so you were performing 6 nights a week, or 5 nights a week, and rehearsing 6 days a week, and then going to do the play at night.
Well, and not just rehearsing. He had pretty much the same amount of material to sing as the rest of us, but he was also playing the piano for almost every song. He was doing choreography for some of the numbers. So yeah. And so that was the most aggravating part for me, is I couldn't even whine as much as I wanted to, because I know Ryan was working
you managed
like 4
to get a lot
times
of
as hard
whines.
as I was.
But so how was that for you, Ryan? I know it was exhausting.
It was there, and we during La La Lucille, we also had the understudy fiasco that happened like right at the same time, and so we were like rehearsing an understudy in off hours, and so there would be times when I would we'd finish rehearsal and I would be like, I have to go home and take a nap and come back and do the show. Like I literally would go home and lie down, and it made a difference just in my my well-being, to get like a little afternoon nap. But I felt useless that whole first week, just because that's when a lot of the skeleton has to be built, and I was because I was so busy with La La Lucille, I didn't really get to do a lot of prepping of choreography. And I normally like to come in with most of my ideas written down, so that if something has to change, or if someone else has a better idea, it can be incorporated a lot easier into what I originally had in mind. And I didn't even have time to create the choreography. Everything was created on the spot, and I like working like that sometimes, but not when I'm spread very thin. But it all came out in the wash, and it all turned out really good, and everybody was really patient with me and really accepting and helpful, and it's when you have a cast this good of people who create so many ideas too, it's it makes my job as a choreographer that much easier when other people can contribute like that. So,
and the amount of coffee you drank, Ryan.
Oh, very ungodly
that's
amount.
actually an interesting conversation. So I am normally
yeah.
a 6 to 8 shots of espresso per day kind of person. But in quarantine,
Not healthy.
myself off. I weaned myself down to three shots of espresso a day. Which is
Do
really
you
good.
space them out, or you do them all at once?
I would do when I was doing 6 to 8, it would be 4 in the morning and 2 to 4 in the afternoon. But now I'm back at 4, and they're all in the morning just to really like get me going.
Okay. This is
Excellent.
progress for you. It's progress.
Well, you know, we all have our needs. But you know, I knew, of course, that you'd be under that kind of pressure and schedule. So, you know, there were plenty of things for us to do that you could just sort of lay low for a while. And also, you know, I know it was maybe nerve-wracking, probably nerve-wracking to have to continually have to do things on the spot like that. But that was really the I don't know, the sort of the atmosphere of the piece, that things were you know, it's planned spontaneity, you know, but it achieved a level of spontaneity, and it's the kind that I absolutely wanted. I wanted the whole thing to look like it was a party.
Yeah.
That was just exploded out of nowhere, with the 4 highly volatile people and all that. So, you know, I think a lot of that energy or frustration or whatever you were feeling at the time fed into that in a very positive way, and allowed, I think, a lot of, you know, often the best ideas are the ones that just are there and come out in the moment. And you know, so you staged some really wonderful, clever dances, including one for yourself, that incredible tap solo. Yes, wave the hair again, please. And yeah, I'll wave mine. Thank you. And we added a couple of numbers that were not in the original show. One was that great Lobachevsky that Joel, you did. That was so wonderful. I was watching it on our grainy archival video the other day, and still comes through. People love that. I think when you put on that hat, just on the button.
That's the source of the comedy of almost the whole show, is just the funny hats that we all wore.
Oh yeah, your pollution hat.
Yeah, could have plugged anyone in, just as long as you have the right hats. So.
Well, exactly.
Well,
I love
actually,
doing that number, Joel.
actually, we had a question from the crowd here. Asking,
Oh yes, what?
how quickly did you cast the show, or did you cast the hats first? No, that wasn't part of it.
Luckily, you can see the questions. I'm lucky I can hear you, so I can't see the questions. How quickly did I cast the show?
Yeah.
It was over time. I think, Ryan, you may have been the first, the person that was cast, because I needed to make sure that we had someone who could, you know, basically do the show, play the show, and do the song. So I needed to make sure that piece was in place, and your choreographic skills and everything else. And then, I mean, I knew all of you. Carmen had worked here before. Bradley this was your first time, but we had met about a year before that. We're auditioning for another show. Joel, you've been hanging around like a bad suit for a long time. But there's also your tap debut. No, you did your act here. You did your act.
I did a little cabaret show there for it's kind of a Penn Players fundraiser. I did my own show there summer of 2001, I think. And I also did I did a production of The Good Doctor in 2002 during the winter there.
I did not.
Me and Suzanne Graff and Amy McKenzie, when Amy McKenzie was running it, and Doug Manchesky. So yeah, and that was in the big space. And I guess I'd done a couple other performances of that weren't tap productions, but things that were there. So, and I've known James for a zillion years.
Oh, since you were babies.
1974, I think we did our first show together. So
yeah, I mean, James has told this story many times where you all were trapped in the chorus of the Music Man.
yeah.
After playing actual roles in another production of the Music Man, right? Did you play?
Well, I played the role of Winthrop at the old Summerstock Theater here in Milwaukee, Melody Top, where Van Johnson, the movie star, played Harold Hill, and Susan Watson, who's a big Broadway star, played Marion, and I played Winthrop. And then I went and auditioned for a small community theater, and I was cast as the understudy.
Well, welcome to show business.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's funny
Good you
how-
learned it at a young age.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so you and James were in that cast, that chorus cast. I think your brother Alan was involved with that, and all your brothers.
All my brothers were in it.
All your brothers. And Deborah Babbage was the script girl, I heard.
Yeah.
For those of you who know Deborah Babbage. So anyway, we've been trying to get Joel up here for a long time. And so he's a busy man and turned us down a few times. And finally, we made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And he's regretted it ever since. And Carmen was here in Shinbone Alley.
Yep.
And so it was just when I'm thinking about doing the show, you start thinking of certain people to do it, and you cross your fingers that they're available and you can do it. And then now here you all are. So it's like I said, it's finding the right people at the right time to do the show that you want to do. We're not in the habit here of just picking a show and then finding a cast. I'd like to have at least a couple of people in mind to sort of anchor it for me. So I suppose with this show that was you, Ryan. You were my initial anchor, and then everything grew from there. And all that, and we had worked together the year before, and Billy Bishop Goes to War, which very different show and a wonderful experience in of itself. So I was anxious to work with you again, and next time we'll try not to do it where we're overlapping, so incredibly physical, demanding productions. Maybe one you're just playing a walk-on or something. Come on. Let's see. I have questions here. I'm trying to look at my notes.
We have answers.
Pretending I'm Stephen Colbert. Are there any other questions, Mr. Moderator? Do you see any questions at all, Joel?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, let's favorite moments. Let's go back to that. What that either of yours, a song that you really enjoyed doing, or that you enjoyed watching one of the others too?
I love the finale. We'll all go together when we go. I thought it really summed up the entire show, and it's such a true sentiment. And but it was also like, as dark as it was still like, hey guys, we made it through tonight, and like it was. We had each other, and then we got to explode after the blackout with confetti, which is the biggest confetti I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was a leftover from the Fantastics. Never throw anything away. But yeah, confetti goes up and goes, it's all right. The bomb didn't kill us. Today.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, Brandon.
What?
Oh, I thought you.
Oh no, I was saying today. It didn't kill us today.
Yes. But
Okay.
maybe tomorrow.
All of you must have if you don't have a favorite moment, I'm going to really.
Actually, I have another favorite moment that happened the following February, I was asked to perform just a little mini cabaret at for a drag show, and it was around Valentine's Day, and I was like, well, gosh, what am I gonna do at a gay bar? What's gonna list at a gay bar? And like, I hold your hand in mine, killed.
Oh,
It was
that's amazing.
well, and it really goes to show you too, like, because I had to accompany myself, and like I couldn't really do much staging or have any use of props, and like Tom Lehrer's lyrics, like even though we had some brilliant staging, if I do think so, even though like each song in our show kind of became its own little mini storyline, and all of the bells and whistles that help with telling that story, like his lyrics really they do just fine by themselves, which is, and that's how he performed them too. And to in some of the moments in the show where it was just park and bark, where the lyrics work for us, those were really awesome moments. And so
Yeah, those were definitely some of my favorites to watch. The ones where Ryan, where you just got to be alone with the piano, because it really it was really cool throughout the show, like the ways that we really were like adapting some of the songs and like bringing them to life. But then it was really nice to watch some of the songs just like in their natural habitat, like in their original raw form. And so like, yeah, it works really well just stripped down that way. So those are some of my favorites to watch, and probably one of my favorites to do. I think kind of similar to what you were saying about the end of the show, Vatican Rag was really fun, because I feel like that was because that was the only time when all four of us, there was also something great about being able to sing while someone was playing the piano, but that was the only one because we had a recorded track for that one. All four of us were up doing our thing together, like for pretty much the only time in the whole show. And it was also near the end, and so it was like the end was in sight, even though that was like probably the hardest part. But
because you're very tired
song,
at that point.
When that was also, I feel like people who are familiar with Tom Lehrer, that was one of the songs that they were waiting for the entire show. And so when it finally came, it was like this big, awesome response.
Oh yeah, especially when Joel, you walked in. I mean, talk about a costume doing the work for you. You in that habit and that beard.
Oh my God.
Killed.
I think for me, my favorite moment was not that, but that was fun. But and it was fun in a different way. It was doing the elements. First of all, it was so iconic, but to have such a long run of a show and to still feel like there was something where it's like I never got it 100% right. I was very happy with but like just trying to get it faster and to get pointing and getting it, getting each element correct, over 100 of them, pointing at them very quickly. It gave me a different thing to keep striving for, to keep driving, to keep pushing myself. There was no possible way to get complacent doing a long run of the show with that element there. It's just like element. But yeah, so that was cool. That was fun. Because sometimes you get into and settle into a show, and that can be a wonderful thing, because then all of a sudden you start to relax and you find different flavors and different things like that. And that happened in other parts of the show. But with the table elements, man, oh man. So that was a
yeah. It was. I mean, it was, and it was always a pleasure to watch it, and to see.
Pleasure not to do it.
Well, pleasure not to do it. Oh God.
I was so glad you assigned that to Joel.
I know.
Just telling you, that song would have scared me so badly, but it was so perfect for him.
Yeah, we did. At the end of the run, Carmen and I would kind of like cheat towards the back so we could kind of like put a hand over and try to do it. And we got sort of good at parts of it, but we never got anywhere.
The two of you could definitely do it, because I remember we went after one of the shows later in the run, and both of you like were able to like recite it
Well, but we could recite some of it, but we couldn't point to each element
no.
on the actual table
No.
like a mad person.
No. And Joel, I don't know if I told you this, I must have, but my husband is an organic chemist and he absolutely loved it. He was so impressed with you. I mean, his face, you know, because we can see the audience faces at TAP. And his face when you were doing that was like, it's just, you were so successful and you definitely got faster as the run went on. I mean, Bradley and I were sitting next to each other.
Oh,
going,
yeah.
And then like the last 2 nights, it's just like, oh, let's just see how fast we can
love
keep
song.
And it's the strangest thing. He did get faster as the run went on, but this song got longer. Now, how did that work, Joel? Yes, I know. Milk.
Yes.
Any favorite song of your own, Carmen?
My own. Well, the beginning of We Will All Go Together When We Go, I've decided to put that into my audition book. So I started,
Love
the
that.
song. I had a little solo in the beginning, the little recitative, basically, before we get into the actual march. I just thought it was so apropos that if this world goes to poop, if, climate change, as we now discuss it, continues the way it is, and it's like, well, at least we'll all go together. I mean, and then we won't have to worry about stuff. And, when you as a musical theater actor are trying to put together your audition book, sometimes it can be like just a really mind torturous thing, because you want to, I know, right? You want to have a song that's perfect for every single audition. And sometimes they'll say, have a serious song and have a comedic song or monologue. And think about how can it's so easy to find standalone songs that are really heartfelt and meaningful, but comedic songs, it's harder. So I realized at the end of the run, oh my gosh, I can take this song and I've like cut and pasted, that kind of janky,
like
hard to read
Frankenstein
score.
cut.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that score was hard to read. I've cut it and pasted it. And so now that is one of my comedic songs in my book. And thank you, Bob.
And one of my favorite moments was Clementine. For a number of reasons. It was one of those numbers that was not originally in the show that we added, because there was a lot of material Tom Lehrer wrote that didn't make the cut for the review, and I really loved the song, and it's where Tom Lehrer plays around with different styles of music and folk music, and he was using bebop. What else was he?
Sullivan.
He was Gilbert and Sullivan and Mozart and all that. And most of that worked. The bebop was it was clever, but Ryan, you came up with a wonderful solution to that. And basically, we premiered a different version of Clementine with that wonderful Hamilton parody that you put together. It was really inspired.
It really was. It really was.
It really was, and cheap all at the same time. It was inspired and cheap.
It was a lot of the best bits were cheap bits.
Exactly. Well, cheap is a very good term in my book, for all sorts of reasons. Cheap bits, cheap anything that doesn't cost me money. Anyway, it was great. But honestly, the entire show for me, I mean, I have favorite Tom Lehrer songs and I could pick out one over the other, but the entire show for me was just a treat to watch night after night. It was kind of a little bit of a dream come true for me to work on this show again, because I loved it so much, and to see all of you just take it to heart and put everything into it, and then to have that wonderful audience response to it, and all that. And I never got tired. It was one of, there are a number of shows I mean, they're all my children,
Hmm.
to quote a famous soap opera. They're all my children, but there are some shows that you need to step away from. Either they were too intense, or whatever. You need to get some perspective. I'll go away for a week and I'll come back and look at it again. I don't think there was. I mean, I didn't see every single moment of every single performance, but I saw many all the way through, and certainly I saw great portions of it every night. I would just pop in at different moments to see where you all were, or a moment that I wanted to look at again. It was always fresh, always funny, meaningful, cheap, just everything I could really wish for, and you guys did it. So thank you.
Oh, thank
Thank
you, Bob.
We have to wrap this up, but do you have any final words for our happy hour reunion audience at all? Any parting shots you'd like to give the people?
Oh, I'm just so glad to do this with these people and at this place. I think this was my third show with Ryan and my third show with Bradley, my second show at TAP, and my first with Joel. So yay, yeah. And it really is special when you get to do shows again with people that you've worked with. And I think that was really important in this show too, because we did have to work so intimately together. And it's so special to be here again with you guys tonight and miss you all so much. And happy anniversary to my husband. We're going out after this.
Yay!
Yay!
All right, keep distance though,
We will. Yes.
Okay.
It's a socially distanced restaurant. Everybody's wearing masks. I checked.
My favorite line of the reunion was, "My husband is an organic chemist." I don't know how many. I don't get a chance to use that line myself.
I know, right?
Very often.
When you can pull it
Yours
out,
could
it's
play one on
relevant.
TV, though.
The what?
Yours could play one on TV if he wanted to.
Well, yes, that's very true.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, all of you. Miss all of you so much. I wish I could have you up here. Oh, look.
Look at this.
Look who's here.
James! Yay! Hello!
Did he have the wrong time zone? What?
He's pointing in. This was my reunion show, James.
I know. Sorry, I didn't mean to break in. I was just trying to tune in so I could say hi after you were off the air. So
Well,
let's hide my screen.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Okay, all right. Mr.
People come
Question.
and go so quickly around here.
Well,
oh man.
on that riotous note, unless there are any more questions at all, I'm not hearing any.
No, I'll just say yes. I wanted to murder you during rehearsal, and I was completely wrong. That your sensibilities for the show in terms of how much to stage things, how much to embellish things, and how much to let them be, just your instincts were just so on that once we got the audience, it was just like, oh yes, this works. This is why this number is blown up. This is why this number is just a stool and a singer. And so it was so great to be able to go through that process with you. I'm glad, in hindsight, I did not murder you. and was just really grateful to go along for the ride with you, and of course with the fantastic cast to get to play with them every night was just both on and off stage was just a delight. So thank you.
And next time, Joel, we'll do a play with you in a hospital bed for the entire time.
Got it.
And no patter songs.
No patter songs.
No patter songs. All right. Anything from the Kappelman corner over there?
Gosh. I was formulating it in my head and then it all just left when you said Kappelman and I got no, it was, whenever you're in a show, like you're always aware of everybody around you, and like with this cast in particular, there was not a single weak link. Like everybody held their own and everybody starred in the show together, and it was just like it was like, you know, when you're like looking for a show, like the licensing rights, and like it'll say like star vehicle in the description of the show, and it was like we all were the star vehicle of this show, and it was a really cool sensation that everybody showed up, everybody had their stuff together, everybody was brilliant, and everybody got along, and we could always even off stage, like we all get along really well, and we could all like everybody was a good soundboard for life issues and whatnot, and it was just a phenomenal experience, and I'll never forget it.
Hmm.
I'm not either. I haven't seen the cat yet, Bradley.
Oh, you
Oh,
missed
she-
There.
She was here. I held her for a little bit.
Oh, I didn't.
Sonia Miaustova. You can follow her on Instagram, everybody. Sonia
Okay.
Miaustova.
You know, I promised the audience a cat.
I got one.
Oh.
Oh, look, see, cats. Any pets there, Carmen?
Nope,
No.
nothing. Sorry.
How about an organic chemist?
I did just
Yeah,
chase my
he's over
cat. No avail.
Oh.
All right. Well, anyway, we have to push off. What's the cat's name, Ryan?
This is Sally.
Sally.
Sorry.
Sally.
She's very
Meow. All right. Thanks again, guys, gal. And let's do it again or do something again
Yeah.
I agree.
soon.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Remote.
Remote. All right. Well, it's
Cheers.
not out of the realm of possibility. And I would love to remount with all of yous. So take care, everybody. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Be distant.
Be distant.
But be close.
Yes.
Indeed.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.